Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talking Sense right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome back Alasdair Milroy from Breaking the Mould Accounting. How are you today?
I'm good, Ria, really well.
Good. A news story popped up about Malta. Now, if you haven't seen the news story, the gist of it is that because of the recent world situation, inflation, the Maltese government decided to subsidize fuel for its residents because that's just another way in which they can help their people. Brokers, not sure where those brokers are from, all of a sudden frantically started calling all of their super yachts and saying, hey, you can come here and get cheap fuel. And so there were quite a number of super yachts that partook of that. Now, let's talk about that. What is subsidizing? What does it mean? And who ultimately pays for it?
Yeah, the government in Malta, I think everywhere in the Western world, I think we're seeing this cost of living crisis. It's in all the papers. We've seen particularly energy bills go up, massive increases in cost of fuel. And in Malta at the moment, the government has artificially kept the fuel price at around 130. So but it's done that by subsidizing. The government, in effect, is buying the fuel at a higher price and then selling it on with a subsidy from taxpayers, ultimately, to keep that cost of living or fuel costs down for people filling their cars and going to work.
So basically what you're saying is a subsidy is when the government purchases, in the case of this fuel, the government has purchased that fuel in order to pass on savings to the people. But ultimately, the money that is used to bring those costs down are the tax-paying dollars or euros of Malta. Ultimately, they are paying for it. It is just spread across the entire country.
The Maltese government has estimated it's lost quite a few number of million euros now before closing this loophole. So they've now brought in legislation to stop any boats over 80 foot or 24 meters from benefiting from this subsidy, which is they can control because normally, these fuels are filled by tankers, so it's very different than subsidizing at the pump. But there's still a benefit for local boat owners who are under 24 meters can subsidize fuel, but they've also brought in quite strict penalties now for anyone caught trying to do this for super yachts. I think it's around a €70,000 fine for whoever's involved with arranging the refueling. But it sort of struck home to me when I read this, because we're an industry which really is trying to promote a clean image. We have this, as an industry, have this image that if something bad happens, people love saying, look at the wealthy with his yacht and who's stolen the pension funds or whatever it is. And I think we've got to really look at the way we behave as an industry. This was legal. It was completely legal, but this subsidy wasn't meant for refueling cheap fuel.
Was it a matter of nobody thinking, or was it a matter of nobody caring, really?
I think it's one for the brokers to answer. Maybe they don't think. Maybe it's like, hey, for their clients, they're doing the right thing. They're getting them cheap fuel and saving them money. But I think there's a wider, rather than just having that for fuel clients, sometimes you've got to think a little bit like over what the reputational risk is. Because, and again, these clients, those wealthy people, if they end up getting named for taking advantage of this, that's going to be a massive reputational risk for them, which perhaps they didn't know about in their own. Often these things are decisions that a captain or a yacht manager will make those decisions for it, but actually that could come back as a fairly big negative news story on the owner of the yacht. And I think, we need to step back and take a breath and think about these things maybe before recommending them to clients.
It does fall into that category of, are we always going to say to people, that's okay, you didn't know? We've seen this in the industry, and things have been coming up with the issue with Russia and Ukraine and all the sanctions. All of a sudden, people are frantically going back through their books to make sure that they can prove that every bit of money that they earn was good money. And it's the same thing. You're told that you have to do your due diligence. You can do, in some cases, hoping that you won't get caught, and more often than not, knowing you won't get caught. Would this be the same case?
Yeah, look, I think sanctions are really difficult, and I'm absolutely, I think they're right to have in place, but there's also a fallout on a lot of banks have taken. I think you've got to think about, are we doing what's right rather than just what we can legally get away with? There's an element of everybody should manage their affairs and is allowed to minimize the tax that they're paying. But I think in the environment we're in, just having a bit more oversight of what's the reputation of the industry, how's that perceived by the general public is important. How it's perceived by people thinking of buying a yacht, who might, I think as an industry, it's important people have trust and we have some integrity around the way we act.
Whenever there is a country that is talking about implementing a luxury tax or the fuel taxes or any extra little tax, maybe 1%, 2%, anything like that, the entire industry is up in arms. We're going to lose our businesses. Everyone's going to be out of work. Everything is going to fall apart. But when it comes to an entire country that is left holding the bag, there's not really a lot of ripples throughout the superyacht industry. Why is that?
I'm not sure why. It's been interesting. I've seen this reported in the Malta press today. I haven't seen it come out elsewhere in the superyacht world yet. Maybe we'll see more come from this. It'll be interesting to see whether they actually name some of these yachts or if that information gets out, because I think that could see some ripples. Certainly if you put yourself in a family office position or an owner of a fairly high profile person who maybe didn't even know that this decision had been made, and then it comes backfires and hits them reputationally, then I imagine they'll be looking for a new yacht manager. I just think, as an industry, we need to have either a code of practice or a way that we just think a bit more carefully rather than go, let's jump for the next thing that's cheap without looking at the impact of that. Because actually what this has done is, it's subsidized fuel from the taxpayers of one country.
People of Malta, not only are they having issues right now, like most countries with inflation and everything that's gone on, the cost of living has just risen exponentially. But now they have literally paid and will have paid for super yachts, gas, fuel.
Yeah, that's what's happened. Legally, it's great, but I don't think it's a great way of portraying the industry.
No, I guess just to make sure that people out there understand, tax-free is one thing. If a country is offering bunkering and a super yacht goes and gets fueled up under the law, it's tax-free. That's one thing. Subsidized is something entirely different.
Yeah, and I think we've seen tax-free. We've seen a lot of those tax-free schemes for fuel and fuel duty. The EU's been quite strong on trying to harmonise that and stop that happening. Certainly where there was commercial exemptions for fuel or VAT back on fuel, that's no longer the case under a lot of the commercial exemptions because of this. But yeah, this was a subsidy to help with the cost of living crisis that we're all feeling, and from the government. You can always argue that you're legally doing the right thing, but I think in this case it seems a bit opportunistic and just, I just think it's got a wider impact on the way the industry is perceived to something. A lot of people I speak to in the industry are very keen to portray it as a good industry to work in, as an industry that we want to see grow and flourish. I certainly love being part of it. And it's a shame to see maybe some short-sighted decisions.
I think, honestly, there are some absolutely amazing people in this industry and people that really want to do the right thing and push the industry forward in a more positive manner. And that's great. But unfortunately, I think also those people need to take the stand and say to those that aren't of the same thought process, stop. No, we don't accept that practices, rather than spending money trying to change the image. Perhaps bring it within and literally change the image by thought, deed, and action. Alasdair, I want to say thank you very much again for your time. Once again, it's been Alasdair Milroy from Breaking the Mold Accounting, right here with us on Yachting International Radio. Thank you.
Thanks, Ria.
My name is Ria. I have been your host. We'll see you again next week.